we'll start off with the Other Jerusalem campaign, going to be presented by the NGO Mondubat. Before that as well, just to kind of, since we do have quite a packed program as well, so we don't waste too much time, let's keep the questions to the very end. So if you have something, please write it down, and we'll have the Q&A at the end. So that should be fine. And just to also let you know, it's being organized by International Solidarity Movement. It's represented by Petra here and Jana, somewhere, yeah, there, taking pictures, and by Amnesty International's English speaking group. So we thank you all for coming and hope you enjoy the presentations.
Hello, good evening. My name is Iskra Soto. I come from Spain, and I speak on behalf of the Mondubat Foundation, which is the promoter of the Other Jerusalem campaign. First of all, I would like to thank everybody here for coming today and joining us. And second, I would like to thank ISM and International Amnesty for holding and organizing this activity here today. The Mondubat Foundation launches this campaign on the framework of the 50th anniversary of the illegal annexation of Jerusalem, which was military annexated in 1967 by the Israeli military forces. The objective of this campaign, we have two main goals, and is first of all to denounce the fake notion that we hear in the media and through the Israeli propaganda that of a unified Jerusalem as the non-divided capital of Israel. And the second goal is to promote the interest and the knowledge of the violations of the human rights that the Palestinian people suffer on a daily basis. The campaign, as you will see when you join the link, which is theotherjerusalem.org, because it's an internet campaign, you will find different case studies about showing different situations of the reality of the Palestinian people living in Jerusalem. And also, there are 5 things that we want to highlight that after me, Dalia and Rami will go in depth with that information. But the 5 things that we think that everybody should know about Jerusalem is, the first one is that East Jerusalem is not a part of Israel. It has been illegally annexated and it has no recognition from the international community of the sovereignty of Israel over this territory. The second thing is that most Palestinians that live in Jerusalem they only have a residency permit. They don't have a nationality, they don't have a permanent ID, and they are in permanent risk of losing that residency. And also, it limits their civil rights in Jerusalem and those territories. The third thing that we want to highlight is the fact that Palestinians can only build infrastructures for homes and other facilities like education, schools, or clinics, or businesses in the 13% of the territory of East Jerusalem, which makes it impossible to have a dignified and a healthy life on a daily basis. The fourth thing is the fact that Israel has annexated most of the territory of East Jerusalem to build illegal settlements where right now there are over 200,000 illegal settlers living there with all the rights and all the facilities that Palestinians don't have. And the fifth thing that we want to highlight is the fact that the Palestinian people suffer continuous demolitions of their homes and facilities So they're being expelled of the city in an indirect way because they cannot stay in Jerusalem. So I will show a very brief video about the campaign, and with that I will finish my presentation. But before that, I would like to say that the campaign includes a petition that Mundubat will send to the European Union authorities and the United Nations authorities at the end of the campaign in November this year to hold the international community responsible for the situation that's happening in Palestine with the illegal occupation, prolonged illegal occupation of Israel over the Palestinian territories, in this case, Jerusalem. So here's the video, and with this I finish my presentation, and my colleagues will follow.
The Other Jerusalem campaign seeks to challenge Israel's prolonged occupation of East Jerusalem and the false notion of an undivided Jerusalem. The campaign aims to strengthen the resilience of vulnerable Palestinian communities in East Jerusalem by promoting awareness about this population's plight under Israeli occupation. East Jerusalem is not a part of Israel. Israel illegally took control by military force in 1967. International organizations do not recognize Israeli sovereignty over East Jerusalem. However, most Palestinian people in East Jerusalem only have a residence permit, not citizenship. Israel can revoke this permit at any time, and bit by bit expands the reasons to do so. Over 14,500 Palestinians have been forced to abandon their city under suspicion of anti-Israeli activities, for marrying a person from the West Bank and meeting their family members there, or for working or studying abroad. On the other hand, the Palestinian population from outside Jerusalem cannot enter the city without an Israeli permit. Over 4.5 million Palestinians living in the West Bank or the Gaza Strip cannot get together with their families or visit their sacred places. Israel allows Palestinians to build homes and basic infrastructures only on 13% of the land in East Jerusalem, generating an unsustainable lack of space and overcrowding. At the same time, 35% of the land of East Jerusalem has been confiscated to build illegal settlements, where approximately 200,000 Israeli settlers live. In East Jerusalem, Palestinian minors are twice as likely to be detained as Jewish minors. When arrested, they are interrogated without the presence of their parents or of a legal guardian, handcuffed and chained. What can you do for East Jerusalem? Educate yourself through the webpage of the campaign or follow our social network. Start talking. It's important that the people around you learn about the reality of East Jerusalem. Create a community. Use all the resources you have to disseminate information about the reality of the violations of the human rights of the Palestinian population living in East Jerusalem. Sign the petition. You can influence compliance with international law and the end of Israel's discriminatory laws and practices against the Palestinian population.
One more thing, we have the brochure of the campaign with all the information on that table, so feel free to take one when you go.
Thank you, Esther, for the presentation. And our next presenter is Jack Khalil, who is the director of the Jerusalem branch of the Jerusalem Legal Aid and Human Rights Center, an organization that provides legal assistance to vulnerable communities in Jerusalem and elsewhere in West Bank, especially providing free or undertaking free legal cases confiscation and recently also settler violence. Jack holds a master's degree in human rights. And, please.
Shukran. Thank you, Omar, for this introduction. I don't think that I need a mic.
For the camera.
For the camera? Okay, I'll put it here. Again, thank you, Omar, and thank you for being here us today, this evening, in order to introduce the situation in the city of Jerusalem. Just before I start our story, which is a story of forcible transfer in Jerusalem, I would like just to give you a glimpse about our organization, Jerusalem Legal Aid and Human Rights Center. It's a Palestinian organization that provides a pro bono free service legal representation for Palestinians. We were established in 1974 by the American Friends Committee Services, which is the Quakers. And in the mid of 90s, there was a localization of this program, and we started as a Palestinian legal aid, a Palestinian non-governmental organization. Our mission is to provide legal representation for Palestinians, regardless who's the party that violates their right, whether it is the Israeli occupation with house demolition, a forcible a transfer for Bedouin communities in Area C, or the Palestinian Authority when we are talking about political arrest or termination from the public job. This is our mission. And today we are going to concentrate on the situation of inside the city of Jerusalem. But as usual, when we are going to talk about Jerusalem, we usually start from 1948. I have here some maps, which is a Google map showing the city of Jerusalem. To start with, let us move to the city of Jerusalem. You can see it here. And in 1948, we are talking about more than 28,000 Palestinians. They were forcibly transferred from the west side of Jerusalem, from those neighborhoods, and they became refugees in the east side of Jerusalem. We are talking about Al-Talbiyah, Katamon, German colony, Greek colony. Those are like Palestinian neighborhoods that were built on the west side. Just to let you know, before 1948, there wasn't this green line. Actually, Google did it in red, but it is called the green line that separated the West Bank, Jordan, from Palestine 48, which was Israel. So that before 48, we haven't this line. It was an open city. Most of the Palestinians who want to build new houses, they went to the west side of Jerusalem and built those neighborhoods. And just to let you know, when we're talking about those neighborhoods, we are talking about not the most luxurious neighborhoods in Jerusalem, neither Palestine. No, it was the most luxurious neighborhoods in the Middle East. People from Iraq, from Syria, from Lebanon, from Egypt, they had houses here. And we are talking about more than 10,000 fully furnished houses. They were distributed for new Israeli settlers, immigrants, that they came to the city of Jerusalem in 1948. And today we have this kind of silent demonstration that we used to do it till 2012. A demonstration, silent demonstrations in front of those houses in the mid of May each year, calling for the right of the return. We are talking about Nakba survivors. As you can see, those are like the children and the grandchildren of the people who had houses in the west side of Jerusalem, and right now they are considered refugees. Where? In the east side of Jerusalem. This had happened in 1948. In 1967, the Moroccan Quarter. Back to our Google map, and you can see the Moroccan Quarter exactly on the south side of the city of Jerusalem, of the old city of Jerusalem. We are talking about 950 people were forcibly transferred from this neighborhood. We are talking about 135 houses were demolished by the Israeli bulldozer. And not only houses, we are talking about Al-Afdaliyah school, an old historical school in the south of the city of Jerusalem, back like 500 years ago. جامع البراق or البراق Mosque, زاوية بومدين, مقام الشيخ, all of those like 5 main historical places in the side of the old city of Jerusalem, they were demolished. And we have some of those pictures, real pictures that JLAC, our organization, have. You can see the bulldozers knocking over the houses, and it was documented an old lady was killed in 1967 as the bulldozers came to demolish those houses. Okay, this is the old story that usually we start with. What is the situation today? In Jerusalem, it's a case of a demographic conflict. Right now, we as Palestinians, we are 37% of the population inside of the city of Jerusalem, while the Israelis are 63%. But according to the master plan, which is Master Plan 2020, that the city of Jerusalem should maintain as the solo capital and the unified capital, not only for the state of Israel, but for the all Israelis around the world, so that they should maintain the characteristic of it as an Israeli city. And one of the most important characteristics is to have the majority of Israel living inside of the city of Jerusalem. So according to the Master Plan 2020, we are talking about that that the Israelis should be more than 70% of the population, while we as Palestinians, we should be less than 30%. But according to the natural growth of the Palestinians within the coming 10 years, we will be more than 40%, while the Israelis will be less than 60%. And this contradicts with the Master Plan 2020. The question is, and this we are going to try to answer it now, what are the tools that the Israelis are using that those Palestinians should not be 40%, they should be 30%, and how the Israelis will be increased to 70%. And this we are going to try to answer it within the presentation right now. You've heard about the Greater Jerusalem Bill. It's a bill that the Israelis are looking that they do not like to have Jerusalem as it is, but they are going to expand it. But let's see when the expansion of the city of Jerusalem. Back to our Google map, and here is Jerusalem at the Jordanian era. We are talking about the green area. This green area, it is the municipality of Jerusalem when it was administered by the Jordanian kingdom, the kingdom of Jordan. It is only 6.5 kilometers square. But as Israel annexed the city of Jerusalem, they have all of this area. We are talking about that. It is all of it. It is 125 kilometers square, but the east side or the occupied east side, we are talking about 75 kilometers square. So that after 67, as Israel occupied this side of the city, they have expanded it, and the capital of Israel was mostly, or the bigger side was on the occupied territory. And when we would like to know about the Greater Jerusalem Bill that they are right now discussing, they are looking to expand the city toward south, adding Gush Etzion block and Ma'ale Adumim block from the east, adding more than, we are talking about here, we have 65 kilometers square, and 14 new settlements will be annexed to the city of Jerusalem. This will increase the city of Jerusalem from 125 kilometers squares up to 270 kilometers squares. What does this mean? This means that 81% of the capital of Israel, the capital of the state of Israel, is an occupied territory. They illegally annexed it, and the most of the major part of the city is within the occupied territory. And also, we are talking about that this will increase the number of population inside of the city of Jerusalem, so that we will have an additional 125,000 settlers will be added to the Jerusalem population. because they have annexed both of those settlements blocks to the city of Jerusalem. Also, it's worth to mention that when we are talking about annexing, the Israeli authorities, as they annexed the east side of Jerusalem, they were looking in a strategic way. They were not looking to annex people. The most important thing for them is to annex land. So back to our Google map, and here I will give you Bet Hanina, a village in Jerusalem. You can see the Bet Hanina village was left outside the borders of Jerusalem. Bir Nabala, Aram, Al-Izariya, Abu Dis. For us as Palestinians, all of those villages are Jerusalem. But for Israel, all of the villages, the core of the village, was left outside of Jerusalem. Why? They don't want people. They want empty lands in order to expand more. And also, very important issue, which is the separation wall. When we are talking about the separation wall, we are talking about 164 kilometers around and surrounding Jerusalem. And we have two important neighborhoods in Jerusalem, which is Kufr Aqab, the Syria area, and Anata and Jafat refugee camp. Here, just to let you know, we are talking about more than 80,000 Palestinians living here. Those 80,000 Palestinians, we have noticed that since 2008, that there were like a kind of rumors that Israel is not looking forward to continue ruling over those two areas. It is crowded, high density of population, so that they are not interested. At the beginning we said it was rumors. But in 2009, the deputy of the mayor of Jerusalem, in a lecture in the Hebrew University, told the students that, okay, we have discussion within the municipality, we are not looking forward to continue having this area. In 2012, the mayor himself announced that they are not looking and they are studying some alternative ways that those two neighborhoods will be out. In 2015, Netanyahu, Prime Minister himself, said that all of the neighborhoods inside Jerusalem, behind the wall, we are not looking forward to continue administrating it and to be part of Jerusalem. What does this mean? This means that the population in Jerusalem here that we said it is 315 will not continue to be growth, but it will be decreased by 80,000 Palestinians. So that instead of having this number, we will be decreased to almost 80,000 Palestinians. And this will help the master plan to be implemented. Second issue, it is the settlers who are living inside the east side of Jerusalem. Let us see the settlements inside the city of Jerusalem. We are talking about almost 226,000 settlers are living in those neighborhoods. Those settlers, we are talking about between 2000, the year that the Second Intifada started, till 2015, we are talking about 31% increase of the population of the settlers inside East Jerusalem. It's important to keep in mind that we have mentioned that there are almost 500,000 Israelis living in Jerusalem, unified Jerusalem. It's important to keep in mind that almost 41% of this population are settlers. We are talking about 41%, and according to the international law and according to the 4th Geneva Convention, Article 49, it's forbidden that as an occupying power to transfer my own population to an occupied territory. Israel is doing it. And not like this. They are talking about like 41%. By the way, the 41%, we haven't talked about those two blocks. No. Because those are still in plan, as we have mentioned. We're talking about this area, we are talking about the 41% are settlers in the city of Jerusalem. Just to let you know, this is important, that there was an increase of 70% in the construction of settlements in 2017 if we are comparing it to 2016. And this is not according to us as the Palestinian Legal Aid Organization. No, it's according to the Bureau of Statistics. They have announced it in 2017. So that the Israelites, for them, building settlements is something strategic. And they are looking forward to build more and more settlements. They are looking forward to confiscate more and more lands. We said first that we are about the separation wall, how it will affect us if they are going to make all of those neighborhoods outside Jerusalem. We have noticed that they are encouraging settlers, and right now we are going to introduce you the situation of building inside the city of Jerusalem. This is important. There is a report by the Israeli municipality. It is not as a Palestinian organization. It is not a report by an international organization. It is the municipality of Jerusalem. Within this report, they assure that there is a need of 1,500 housing units in the east side of Jerusalem each year. There is a need. Palestinians are growing. They are having families. There is a need of 1,500 housing units per year. That's about per year. In 2012, we as Palestinians, we have applied for 283 licenses. So that we are talking about 283 people, or actually subcontractors, went to the municipality. We are requesting houses. And logically you will say, okay, excellent. All of those will be approved by the municipality. Because the municipality itself, there is a need of 1,500. Unfortunately, less than half was approved by the Israeli municipality. You will say, wow, only less than half. This is the situation in Jerusalem. And somebody will say, look, Jack, if I'm living in the city of Jerusalem, if I'm a Palestinian, I will not think to apply with 283. If there is a need of 1,500, let us go and apply with 2,000 licenses per year. In order like half of them will be applied or whatever. Which is a little bit logic. So you as Palestinian, you are responsible. You are not applying for the municipality. You have applied only less than the third of the 1,500 housing unit. I will answer you about this question within the coming slide. It's important to know, right now, the situation in East Jerusalem, that 28% of the housing units in Jerusalem is considered illegally built. This figure according to OCHA, it's the United Nations Humanitarian Coordinating Office. So that we are talking about 28% is illegally built. And imagine that almost a third of the housing units in Jerusalem will be demolished. Imagine. If the bulldozers of the municipality will start working, they say, khalas, we are fed up of those illegal houses and we are looking to demolish them. We are talking about more than 95,000 Palestinians will be affected by this, and they will be without a house to protect them. They will be displaced from their city. Just to give you some figures, I will not talk, this is like 2004, 2008, a little bit late, old, we are talking about like almost 500 housing units were demolished within these 5 years. But let us look at the recent figures. Between 2011 2017, we are talking about 752 housing structures were demolished by the Israeli authorities. This had led that 1,287 people were displaced. They became without any house. Half of them, more than half of them, 725, are children, less than 18 years old children. And right now, let us go back to the question that many people will think, why you as Palestinians, why you do not organize yourself? Why you do not go and ask for more permits? It's important to be planned or to have planning. Well, it's important for us in Jerusalem, or actually, we in Jerusalem know that there is an unwritten law that it is in Jerusalem, it is forbidden to build in East Jerusalem. This is the unwritten law. Just to let you know that areas in Jerusalem, in the east side of Jerusalem, let us remove those two areas, and we have the settlements, and we have this. Within east side of Jerusalem, we are talking about that there are three types of land. Either it is unfit for building, or considered a green land, or open space. I will explain green land and open space within a couple of seconds. Unfit for building, it's normal because it's on sloppery rocks or in the valley or whatever, so that it is. What this left us for Palestinians, we are talking about less than 12% is left for residential. We can build on less than 12% in the city of Jerusalem. And those 12% are already exhausted by housing units in the east side of Jerusalem. What do we mean by the green land? This is Jabal Abu Ghneim picture. You can see it here. It's a forest. This is back to 1997. And this is 2005, which is the settlement of Har Homa, Jabal Abu Ghneim settlement. You can see it is the same. We are not like Photoshop or whatever, but why I'm presenting this? In 1967, as Israel occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem, they came and looked about the potential areas for residential. But they didn't say that it is a potential area for residential. They said that it is a green land. We are going to confiscate this land because it's a forest. There is also Rekhas Shu'afat or Shu'afat Hills that also they prohibited people, Palestinians, prohibited the owners of the land to build there. Why? Because they say, okay, it's a green area, it's a forest, please, you cannot touch it. Actually, according to the Israeli law, they didn't confiscate the land, they confiscate the right of the owner to use the land. So that if I'm having a piece of land here, I will not be able to agriculture it, or to build on it, or like to cut the trees because I cannot use it. The only thing I can do is to sell it. But who wants to sell a land that you cannot do anything for it? People did not sell. In 2002, actually before in 1999, there was like starting the Israeli government checking. In Jerusalem, we are looking to expand the settlements. So where they are going to, there are like two areas. This is Jabal Abu Ghneim, Har Homa, and this is Shu'afat, Rekhas Shu'afat. It is the settlement. So that they say, okay, we found it. Those two potential area or green land, according to the Israeli law, the Ministry of Housing, they have the ability to change the status of the land from green land to residential. So the Israeli ministry changed it. The question was like, excellent, we as Palestinians can build with our own land. No. It was like after 30 years of the occupation, we were not able. This land was given to the Minister of Housing And they have started developmental projects, a housing project on this. And there are two Israeli sectors that have benefits from Shafat and from Jabal Abu Ghneim. Here, they have all of the Orthodox religion Israeli. They gave them Rest Shafat, so that on Shabbat it's exactly adjacent to Shafat. There is a road between them. There is on Saturday, there is a block so that neither Palestinian or any Israeli driving a car cannot go inside. And here, they give it for secular Israelis. They have increased the number of Israelis living inside of the city of Jerusalem, and they confiscated the land. And this really shows how discriminative the Israeli laws are dealing with us. As an owner for this land, we were not able to use it, or to live, or to buy there. The second issue, which is the open space. The open space is also a very discriminative issue that we as an organization faced it, and we were really, as usual, not that much optimistic within the Israeli legal system, but sometimes we work on finding some gaps within the Israeli laws in order to have new arguments with the courts. So, one of the cases that we have adopted is the case of a widow that was living in Al-Mazmuriya, which is here. I will remove the Jerusalem municipality border so that you can see it. Here it is. Exactly this house. This is a widow. Her husband started building a house in 1998. He passed in 2000. And they received a demolition order for this house. Her name is Sana Atiyah. And she started to work with the lawyers, etc. And she came to our organization, we represented it. We started with the local affairs court. We jumped to the administrational court, it was rejected. Then we went to the Supreme Court, we were rejected. Coming back to the administrational, to local courts, and we reached the dead end. And it was like a 7-year case for us. At the end of the day, one of the lawyers came and told me, what about going to meeting the deputy of the mayor of Jerusalem, the Israeli one? As a Palestinian organization, we usually do not do such a thing. But he said, look, maybe this will be helpful. We meet them, and because she's a widow, it will be a kind of a humanitarian issue. Maybe we can tackle this issue. I told him, okay, go in a very low profile, meet him, and let us check, or hoping that it will be for the benefit of the widow or for the lady herself. And as they met, it was really a 12-minute meeting. Two lawyers from our organization, an engineer that represents her also. 3 of them went to the deputy mayor of Jerusalem, and as they were talking, they told her she's a widow, it's only one house, yani come on, we can give her like a special status so that not to demolish the house itself. The deputy told them, hold on, but Al-Mazmuriya, this area, it's called Al-Mazmuriya, it is an open space. So the lawyer said, okay, it's an open space, yani, give a permit for one. He said, no, hold on. If I'm going to give her a permit, this will mean that the settlers inside Abu Ghneim will not be able to see the Dead Sea, because from here, the Jordan Valley, you can see this is the Dead Sea, so that this house will block the view. So the lawyer told him, it's one house. He said, no, come on, hold on, stop, please. If we are giving a permit for one house, the neighbors will start, depending, because we give her a license, they will start, please, khalas. It's an open space, and those people would like to see a very nice natural view. He didn't say, I'm telling you the truth, he didn't say that we don't want to see Palestinian houses blocking the view for the settlement of Har Huma. They didn't say it. But anybody can really understand it, that they do not want to see Palestinian housing units in front of the settlement. And they refer to the open space. This is not only one of our cases. You can see this in different areas in Jerusalem, such as North Zion here. This is a settlement inside Sur Baher, nearby Sur Baher, and you can see that all of the area beside it, it's empty. Why? Because from here the settlers can see the old city of Jerusalem within their view, panoramic view. So that the case is, they do not want us to build, so a settler will have the privilege of seeing the nature or the historical places of Jerusalem. While we as Palestinians, khalas, you can do whatever you want, you should not live inside the city of Jerusalem. So, we said about construction is forbidden. What's the time limit? I don't want to.
15 minutes.
Okay, I think it will be enough. License fees and duration. It's worth to mention that when a Palestinian wants to build a house, it almost the permit to build is 25,000 euros. While if he wants to build, like having employees, having workers, having the tools, having the material, it will cost him 29,000 euros. So it's almost the same amount that Palestinians should pay in order to have a building on a 200 meter square, half a dönüm house. This does not include the price of the land. By the way, in Jerusalem, the price of land is very expensive. So that we are only talking about like going to the municipality, applying for a house, applying for a permit, and building it. It's almost the same. So you say, okay, Palestinians, please, pay the fees, and you can have a permit. The answer is not like this. Because if you are talking about having the process of the application itself, it's not a case of 3, 4, 5, 6 years. Some of the housing projects inside East Jerusalem, it was almost 18 years. A process, a long process, that first we have to go to the municipality with the archaeological department, then the water department, then the transportation department, and at the end, each one of those, it is a case of 2 years. And if there is a kind of a problem, they found something within the land, you can say that your housing project will be evaporating in front of you. And each process of those, you have to pay. Plot ratio, this is important also because it shows us, you know what's plot ratio? Plot ratio is the percentage of land you can use it to build a house. So, these are the settlements, and these are the Palestinian neighborhoods that were built, or the settlements were built on those lands. Pisgat Ze'ev was built on the Beit Hanina land. Look, Pisgat Ze'ev, the Israeli, the settler, can have a housing built on the piece of land like almost 120%, having 3-4 floors. While Palestinians in Beit Hanina, only 50 to maximum 75% of the land they can use it for building. You can see how the discriminative issue when you look, for instance, for Ramat Shlomo or Har Huma, the new one in Jabal Abu Ghneim, it's 120%, while in Sur Baher, sometimes you only build on 35% of the piece of land that you own. And this for us really, we can't any. Is there any explaining for this not more than discrimination? Revoking residency rights. What is revoking residency rights? We as Palestinians, me and Dalia, we are living in Jerusalem, and it's worth to mention that living in Jerusalem, they didn't give us a permanent status. They gave us like something temporarily called resident status. This means that If I'm living outside Jerusalem for 7 years, they will revoke my ID and they will put it in a shredder machine, really. So, if a student travels to Europe to study, each year he has to come back to Jerusalem, to the Minister of Interior. I'm still coming and I'm looking forward to live inside the city of Jerusalem. And if a Palestinian is obtaining a foreign country citizenship or a temporarily resident status, automatically, if the Israeli authorities knew about it, they will revoke their residency status. And most recent, if they consider the Palestinian as a national security threat, also he and sometimes his family will be threatened to lose the right to live inside of Jerusalem. When we are talking about this, we think about the Palestinian parliamentarians whom were elected in 2006, but the Israeli authorities consider that they are affiliated with some Palestinian movements, such as Hamas, and there was a decision by the Minister of Interior to revoke their status of residency inside the city of Jerusalem. According to the figures, we are talking about between 1967 and July 2017, we are talking about more than 14,660 Palestinians lost the right to live in Jerusalem. How we do know about it? We, as a legal aid organization, each year we submit a request according to the Israeli Freedom of Information law. We are request from the Minister of Interior, how many people you vote? Okay. They are talking about 14,600. The Minister of Interior announced this figure. But is it the real figure? Just to let you know. I have 3 cousins out of those. One is married to an American, one is married to German, and to French. 3. So that from here we have like 3 members of Khalil family that they lost. But hold on. What about their spouses? That those spouses will not be able to come and live in the city of Jerusalem. What about their children? We have like each one of them having 3 children. So that all this, also the children will not be able to come and live, will not be able to come to be educated in Jerusalem. They can come and visit as a tourist, real tourist. A 6-month visa and yalla, bye-bye. You have to go back to your country. So, according to us Palestinians, we estimate that we are talking about almost 45,000 Palestinians. They are not able to live inside of Jerusalem because of revoking the residency rights. And how do Israel justify this? This is important. According to what's called the law of entry to Israel, they will revoke those rights. How? In 1967, as Israel occupied the east side of Jerusalem, there were Palestinians living here. My father, my grandfather, my grandmother, they were living here. So Israel was thinking, how we are going to deal with those Jerusalemites? The Arabs who are, or the Palestinians who are living in Palestine, Haifa, Nazareth, Jaffa, Safa, all of those Palestinians, they gave them a citizenship and they became Israeli. In the West Bank, which is an occupied territory, they said, okay, we are not going to consider you citizens. If you want to leave those countries, if you want to leave, yeah, you can go to Jordan, we don't have a problem. But they didn't give them a status, but it is according to their military laws. For the Jerusalemites, they said, okay, voila. Those Jerusalemites will be considered as new incomers to the state of Jerusalem, to the state of Israel. So we are dealing with those Palestinians who are living in this area as new incomers to the state of Israel. And for this we are going to give them a kind of temporary status, residence. So, if Rami, Dalia, my father, her family, will have a temporary resident status any place, and I will give you an example. You know, the green card in the United States is a temporary status. If the Israeli Minister of Interior notices that Rami have a green card, automatically they can withdraw my residency there. Why? Because it is a new status, and for this they will say, no, خلاص, you have a new resident status, and no need to become or to stay inside the city of Jerusalem. I will finish here, and just before I will have the message. What is the situation in Jerusalem, in Palestine, in Jerusalem? Sometimes Israeli organization, Israel politics say, please, you cannot say that it's an apartheid. But just to let you know that the previous Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak, in 2017, and we quoted him, not we, like he was telling the Israeli media, Israel's current situation is not yet apartheid, but the country is in a slippery slope heading into that direction, to be an apartheid country. And for this reason, we think that it is important to deal with the state of Israel as how the international community dealt with South Africa through the apartheid era. The international community should hold Israel accountable for all of the violations that they are doing against Palestinians. We are looking forward that the international community should have sanctions against Israel of all of the violations that they are doing. And what is our message before I am handing my colleague Dalia? That we are not going to leave. Jerusalem is my own land, my own home, my father's, my grandfather, my great-grandfather who lived there. And for sure, we are not going to live. We are not going to leave. We are living there, and we will be still living there. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the enlightening presentation. It was very, very enlightening indeed. Now, our next presenter is Dalia Nassar. She's also from Palestine, from Jerusalem. She's a human rights activist working for the Union of Palestinian Women Committees, an organization that strives for equality between women and men in the Palestinian society, and definitely it's within the context of the Israeli occupation.
Hi. First, I would like to thank Omar, ISM, ICAP, and Mandubat for having us here. It's a great opportunity, and thank you all for coming. It's a great pleasure to have you all here listening to us. Well, as Omar said, I work with the Union of Palestinian Women Committee. We work alongside with Mandubat and funded by the EU in a project called Canaan. I'm the project coordinator for this project. The project aims for the strengthening the resilience of Palestinian Jerusalemites in Jerusalem, especially women. We work with women in Jerusalem in diverse issues, psychological, economical, and social issues. So, yeah. So this photo is in Jerusalem, Bab al-Amud area. Those people are not numbers. Neither are those. Those people are stories of individuals suffering in Jerusalem and in Palestine. It's Mediterranean stories, suffering every single day. And at the end of the day, in the newspapers, we are only numbers. It's the story of Ahmed Tamimi, the story of the parliamentary member Khalida Jarrar, a story of children, 400 children in Israeli jails, a story of human rights defender Khitan Safin, and a feminist who was put in administrative detention along with others with a no trial. It's the story of Isra Jabiz, who was put in jail just because her car, the motor blew up and she was burned. So she had to leave the car and was arrested for trying to attack a settler while she was burned like this, as you see in the photo. And she is still in jail with no health care. As you can see, no fingers, she lost her fingers. She is still today in jail with no health care. It is the story of Aisha Rabi, who was murdered just 2 days before we arrived here, while she was coming back from her daughter's wedding by Israeli settlers. It's the story of the Wabshi family. 3 of them were murdered, burnt down with their house. It's the story of Muhammad Abu Khader, who was brutally tortured and burnt with gasoline in his throat and then killed. It's the story of every Palestinian child trying to go to the nearest school around him. The story of every child wanting to play in a neighborhood or to go buy candy from the nearest store. It's having to hold a birth certificate every time you want to go to school, just to prove to the Israeli soldier that you are only a child and you're not any threat to them. It's the story of women standing for the demolition of their houses in Khan al-Ahmar and other villages who will be demolished. So I think he gave a very good historical background, but I will just give another thing. It's, you know, I've been born in Jerusalem, and I'm a Jerusalemite. I never was born to hate anybody. Nobody gets born with hate. But I was 3 years old when I saw the first tank in front of my house. I was 3 years old when a gun was put to my head because I tried to stop the soldier from searching our house. So I was not raised to hate anybody. Nobody told me to hate Israel. I love people all around the world, but I hate soldiers, I hate guns, I hate occupation, and I hate injustice. In 1948, Palestine was occupied. Palestinians, if you could put them up. Palestinians used to live together along with Jews, Muslims, Christians, and Jews used to live together, as you see in the first photo, a Muslim with a Jew walking together before 1948. And after the Zionism idea came, Israel militias came to Palestine in 1948 after the immigration and started taking off land piece by piece. If we see the map here, this is Palestine in 1946. The UN plan in 1947, when the British mandate wanted to leave Palestine, they made the partition plan, which put Jerusalem as a corpus septorum, which is under international mandate. It's not for Israel. It's not the capital state for Israel, and Israel has no right to take it, but still Israel did not have enough of taking lands at the end. Here, present today, on the green parts are the Palestinian parts. All the Palestinians who lived in all this land are today in refugee camps in Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, other Arabic countries, or refugees in Palestine itself. So you get a Jerusalem ID, which is an ID that says that you can move around Jerusalem. You can get a health care that mostly is also racist. You can get some rights. This is my ID. I can take it out for you if you want to see it. Here is the nationality. If you see, it's all stars. We don't have a nationality. We have this, we can't keep this. It can be taken away from us by policies such as the entry to Israel law and the Center of Life law and other many policies that Rami has explained before, so I don't want to go through them again. So it can be revoked at any time. If you look at our travel document, this is the travel document I hold to come here. It says this travel document does not constitute an attestation of the citizenship of the barrier. So it's just to let everybody in every airport knows that we are not citizens, so they can treat us the way they want. It's not the protection like every travel document you hold. It says that we protect the holder of this travel document, but here it's the opposite. They give us a Jordanian travel document, and on the Jordanian travel document, they write on it that we are from Jerusalem. In the Israeli one, they write that we are Jordanian, and on the ID, they write no nationality. If you want to get married to a Palestinian ID holder, I am engaged to a Palestinian from Ramallah, I have to move out of Jerusalem because he cannot come and live with me in Jerusalem. So it's one other way of letting the Palestinians leave Jerusalem. So this is the separation wall that was built in 2002. The separation wall is one of the ways of making Palestinians leave Jerusalem, forcibly displacement of Palestinians. He showed you Beit Hanina. I lived in Beit Hanina, and my uncles as well lived in Beit Hanina in this area at Ram. So today, if I want to visit my grandfather or visit my cousins, I have to go back to Qalandia and then go to visit them. So it tore about the whole social fabric of Jerusalemites. It also has tried to close the areas of the Palestinians, close areas for the Palestinians, like make the settlements come together and isolate the Palestinian neighborhoods so they can't have relations with each other. So there are also day-to-day policies, except the policies, the legal laws and so on that they put in order to make the Palestinians leave Jerusalem. There are also day-to-day practices by the apartheid Israeli regime. I will speak about first the collective collective punishment. So if you are, if one of the family members had done what is called an attack toward Israelis, the whole building will be demolished of the family. So the whole family has to pay the price of one person attacking Israelis. Sometimes the whole family with cousins and grandfather, it's a whole building with 50 members. So the demolition of houses the movement restrictions. Whenever there is protest in Jerusalem, whenever there are situations in Jerusalem or anything happen, they put checkpoints on every neighborhood. So whenever you want to go out of your neighborhood or go inside your neighborhood, you have to go through these checkpoints. And the revocation of entry to Jerusalem for many West Bank ID holders, and evictions of families, like if a person did any attack to Israel, his wife and his children must leave Jerusalem. So they keep the children and they make the wife move to sea area so she can no longer live with her children. I will speak also about the situation of education. Schools for Palestinians in Jerusalem face many problems. Shortage of classes of rooms. The ministry does not care about giving adequate classes for Palestinians. You find in one room 50 Palestinians, 50 children in one classroom. As well, these children, if there is two types of schools in Jerusalem. It's either there are schools who are funded by the municipality, the Israeli municipality, or the schools who are for Waqf or religious Christian schools. The other schools are threatened always of being, they can't get funded from the municipality because they don't follow the curriculum that is posed by the municipality, which says that there is nothing called Palestine, there is nothing called Nakba. They speak about how to become a good citizen of Israel. So it's a curriculum that tries to erase the whole heritage and culture of Palestinians. And it's imposed on the municipality curriculums, municipality school curriculums. On the other hand, the schools that do not take fund from the municipality and are Waqf, Islamic or Christian schools, they can use the Palestinian curriculum, but some of the teachers get threatened or maybe investigated. Why did you say in class something about Nakba? Or why did you say whatever? Also, the other problem is that when you graduate from the school, you have to go to, you have to decide to go to university. The options you have is a Hebrew university, whereas you face most of the time racism. And if you're not a good Hebrew speaker, you will face many, it will be very hard to study in it. So most of the kids or the young people decide to go either to Bethlehem, a city in the West Bank, or to Ramallah to visit university. When they decide to do those, though, they will have to go every day through the checkpoint of Canandia or the Jerusalem Bethlehem checkpoint, which is very humiliating. And they have to go through it every day, so you need to wake up at I used to wake up at 6 a.m. in order to get to the 9 a.m. lecture. When it's before the separation wall and before the checkpoint on Canandia, I remember that we used to go to Ramallah in like 15 minutes. But today, no, it's humiliation and it's torture. So many kids decide to not go to school because you either have the choice of going to a racist university, or you have the choice to, which is very hard most of the time, or you have the choice to go to an Arab university that in most of the time the certificate is not recognized by Israel. You can't work in Israel. And the problem with that will bring also another problem of unemployment and poverty. Because when you don't have a certificate, in any way, even if you have a certificate, most of the Palestinians in Jerusalem, they work as taxi drivers, bus drivers, or gas station employee, or restaurant waiter, because the companies in Jerusalem are Israeli companies. Most of them, they would not employ Palestinians, and for us, it's hard to work with a settler. So many Palestinians work in low-wage jobs, and then many of them are suffering from poverty. I will also speak a bit about the cultural scene. In Jerusalem, we are refused to do something like this. We can't speak in areas. If we do so, the Israeli forces would come and stop the activity and might put many of the activists who have done the thing to jail because they are doing lectures that are not accepted. You can't do dabkin in the street, which is the Palestinian dancing. You can't do it in the street without taking a permission that most probably will not be accepted because you're doing a heritage Palestinian thing. The Palestinian Authority cannot work in Jerusalem like the statistics. They cannot go work statistics, and the volunteers who did statistics 1 year ago, which were young Palestinian women volunteering to make statistics of the Palestinians in Jerusalem, they were all took to investigation just because they work with the PLO in something inside Jerusalem. So even the PLO, not only civil society organization cannot work or movements, even the PLO cannot work inside Jerusalem. Many CSOs were closed and many activists were put in jail just because they are human rights activists, feminists, and so on. The other issue here is the settler harassment. There is a lot of settler harassment in the area.
مش عارف كله كملي أنا بزبطها.
Just as I said before, the story of Aisha Rabi, who was murdered by settlers, every day-to-day life in Jerusalem, you always witness attacks of Israeli settlers to Palestinians. You see this photo, a woman being hit by settlers, and the IDF, or the IOF, Israeli Offense Army, usually just stand there and look. In some cases, settlers would be holding guns and would start shooting, and the soldiers would just look. 1 week ago, I was coming from Jerusalem to an area near Nablus, which is a city in the West Bank, and in the way, Israeli settlers stopped us and started cursing words and hitting my window. So I wanted to go down. It's the first time that you feel that you want to say something to the settler and you want to curse him back, but you can't because the Israeli soldier is standing next to him. If you go down, the Israeli soldier would kill you and say that you had a knife. So you have to shut up and just close the window and listen to him cursing you for an hour until they will reopen the road for you to pass. If you see here, it's a Swedish activist who was hit by the army in Al-Quds, in Bab al-Amud area, in Jerusalem. Another thing is the deprivation of right of worship. Here you see it's a graveyard for Christian people, and just the day that I wanted to come here in the morning, I was sitting with my father and he was telling me, look at the news, you have to tell this to the people you're going to see, because they attack everybody, they don't care you're Muslim or Christian, they attack everything, they ruin crosses, they do whatever they do. This is a graveyard in Beit Shemesh in Jerusalem. They also put taxes on the sculpture Holy Church. They put taxes on it because they wanted the Christians also out of the city, the Palestinian Christians out of the city. So they put taxes and the church closed for 3 days and protest was on the streets. You see here the Christians are because of the decision by the Israelis. Here it was, they decided to put, before 2 years, they decided to put cameras on every corner of the entry to Al-Aqsa. And cameras that will show the whole body, which is illegal. Internationally, it's illegal. So people started waving out. They went out in protest and so on. You see here Christians with Muslims going out in the streets. And they were forbidden to enter the Aqsa for a huge while at that time. I will give a small time to speak about female prisoners. Since 45 years exactly, there is 10,000 Palestinian women who have been in jail, imprisoned in Israeli jails. Today there is 60 females, half of which are children. It's not only the matter of imprisonment. It's not only this. It's also that the Palestinian women in Israeli jails are some. There are incidents of since the last 10 years, 4 women having birth inside Israeli jails. And they are taken to the hospital handcuffed and having to have childbirth while they are handcuffed. This is by studies from Al-Damir, if you want to look at them. They go through hard psychological torture, ill treatment, negligence of their medical rights, and they lack gender sensitivity. These prisons, they lack gender sensitivity. As well, there is the sexual harassment, something they call search. They search the bodies of the prisoner, and it is illegal, but they do it by force sometimes. They are, in many cases, the Palestinian women are in many cases put in Israeli jails with other Israelis who are not for security reasons. They are thefts or criminal civil reasons for being in jail. So they get attacked by and humiliated from the Israelis in the same cell. The strip and body search and the there is the high sentences like Palestinian women, even though they are denied of a free trial, they are put under sentences, very high sentences, just as it's something like a collective punishment. They gave Marah, Nurhan Abu Awad from Kalandia, an area, a refugee camp near Jerusalem. They gave her, she's 17 years old, she is sentenced to 13 years in jail. As well, and of course, not only 17 years of jail, 300,000 shekels, which is impossible to pay. Their family has to pay them until they die. Marah Bakir, 17 years old, sentenced to 8 years in prison. Isra Jabis, I saw you her picture, she is sentenced to 12 years. So this is basically the situation of women in prison, in Israeli prisons. I will speak a bit now about the effect of the policies that I spoke about before on women, especially in Jerusalem. Since it's the basic thing that we work in Jerusalem, we try to strengthen the resilience of women in Jerusalem, empower them, and so on. So the main problems that women face in Jerusalem is early marriage. This is one of the main problems that we as Palestinians face. A huge percentage of Palestinians women they get early married. And the reason is not only that we are a patriarchal society. I don't like it when we always throw that to this, because there are many reasons. If you look at it deeply, there are many reasons for early marriage. One of them is poverty. When you don't have money, you just want to get rid of your daughter because you don't have money to give her food. And the situation in Jerusalem it makes it impossible to live without being that poor to a point where you can't take care of your own children. So one of the reasons for early marriage is poverty in Palestine, as well as it's the reason in many areas in the world. Poverty would bring early marriage, and so on. Also, the other reason is that since we are a bit of a patriarchal society, it is very hard for a father to accept that his daughter has to go every day through the checkpoint and be humiliated. So in many cases, they would say, okay, don't go to school because I'm afraid something will happen to you, and so on. So she doesn't have a certificate. The only thing she would do is get married. While working, I've met a woman that she's not a woman. She's 18 years old, just becoming a lady. She got married while she was 16. And just 2 months after she got married, no, in the first night of her marriage, her husband thought that she is not virgin. So he decided to kill her, to hit her. And he started hitting her badly. Her father came and continued hitting her. When they went to the doctor, they realized that she was virgin and he had mistaken. He didn't want to divorce her. The problem is the laws in Israel, even though it was the only democracy in the Middle East, the laws in Israel for women, Palestinian women, that they have to go to the Jordanian law, so that if she wants to get divorced, he has to give her the divorce just like the Jordanian court. So many women suffer years trying to get divorced. The girl lives in a refugee camp in Jerusalem. This refugee camp is 3 buildings, but it has 5,000 people inside of it. So this room makes around 10 houses. 10 houses. And there's only one window in each house, something like that. So the girl was going through depression, not only because of the divorce and what has happened to her. She was going through depression because there is no sun in the house. She does not see the sun. Her father is afraid that she goes out and her ex-husband would hit her again. And her mother is as well afraid, so she stays at home all of the time. There is no windows in the house. Her little brother is under home arrest. Home arrest is one of the policies that Israelis use. They put children under home arrest for months or a year or so on. So they can't leave the house. So the jailer becomes the mother because she's the one who's supposed to keep the child at home. Many psychological effects happens at that time, and we try to interfere a lot as an organization helping women through this thing. So the kid, her brother, also was under house arrest. The mother had another girl who was accused by Israelis that she wanted to bomb herself on her engagement day. I don't know how, but she was wearing the dress and she was getting ready for getting engaged. And Israeli soldiers bombed the house. They took her sister, they took her to jail. She stayed in jail for 2 years. When she was accepted the first time to be visited by her family, because most of the time you can't visit your relative in Israeli jails. They would say that there is security issues and you can't visit your family. So her mother wanted to visit her, and she was pregnant with the small kid that I told you he is now under house arrest. She went to the first court for the first time to see her daughter, and she wanted to run to hug her. So an Israeli soldier pushed her. She had to abort the second twin, who is now on house arrest. So When I visited the family, I looked at the whole situation. It's a whole family that is broken down. It's not only the society. It's policies of every day, single day, that makes us as Palestinians suffer all the time. And I think it's really a miracle to survive all of this. But I know that we are strong, and I know that one day, with the help of internationals and with the help of everybody who is against injustice and who wants better future for all people around the world, that one day we will achieve a peaceful solution for the Palestinians. And what we ask for is the right of return, the right of self-determination, basic human rights that everybody in this whole world has, but we don't. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Delia, for the moving presentation. Now we continue. We have roughly 1 hour for the Q&A session, questions, answers. So please go ahead. Don't be shy. As usually, people are shy the first half an hour. Please.
So, hi, thank you for your lectures. It was great. I would like to ask about the current situation of Khan al-Ahmar. You discussed it a little bit, but if you could tell the situation more in detail, what is happening, where it is, and why is it important for the area? And also, this village relates to the Greater Jerusalem plan. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Petra, for raising this question concerning Khan al-Ahmar, and it's good that we still have the maps here with us, so that to see where is Al-Khan al-Ahmar. Al-Khan al-Ahmar, it's a Bedouin community. We are talking about almost 40 families that they are living in this area. Khan al-Ahmar, hold on, it is here. Let us go. This is Ma'ali Adumim, you see, and this is Al-Khan al-Ahmar. And as you can see, it is located exactly nearby the road number 1 that is connecting Jerusalem to the Dead Sea area and all of the settlements of the West Bank. This community itself, it is not a new case. It is almost 35 years. Those people whom are here, the 40 families, maybe it was like 15 or 20 families for 35 years, they were displaced from this area, from Abu Dis, okay, near Ma'ali Adumim. They were exactly here, Abu Nwar, and some of them were in Abu Nwar, and they became they were obliged and transferred to No. You know the Bedouin lifestyle, that it is a Bedouin community that each time they will, in winter, will move from area to different in order to maintain and use the for the sheep for the sheep. Anyhow, this community itself, there was supposed a new plan to be forcibly transferred to Al Nu'ayma, which is here. Let us see Al Nu'ayma. This is Al Nu'ayma. You can see it's an empty land. What is the idea behind Al Khan al-Ahmar? The case that they do not want any Palestinian Bedouin communities in this area, which is E1. And if we see the Ma'ali Adumim, this is the area that we were talking about, E1, with the 5 settlements inside this area and industrial. And it is the potential area to expand Jerusalem to the east side. And most important, when we are talking about this, you can see this is the West Bank, and this area will be like really cutting the West Bank into 2 parts, from the south and north. And this will stop any opportunity to have a Palestinian state, a lively state, a vivid state. This will lead us that we have like some islands of cities in the north, such as Bethlehem, Hebron, and in the north, Ramallah, Nablus. We as Palestinians, as we want to travel from south to north and north to south, we have to pass from here. But the Israeli, they do not want any Palestinian communities inside Ma'ali Adumim. So, the case of Al-Khan Al-Ahmar, those 40 families, to be moved from here to Anwa'me. One of the most important projects that were there was a school built. But this school was built out of tires, the car tires. It was by the Italian corporation that they want like something creative if they are going to demolish it. But it's a school, and it's serving the 40 families and other families from the area to use it as a school. Recently, we have noticed that and this is why it's important as a question, and as Dalia was saying about the international community. We said that the school itself was built by the Italian corporation. And it is a case of, I think, 15, 20 years old in front of the Israeli Supreme Court. And not only the Supreme Court, different courts. But recently like on September, there was a decision by the Israeli Supreme Court, khalas, finished. There is no legal coverage not to demolish the village itself. The Israeli Ministry of Defense, because it's an occupied territory, it's the West Bank, they are responsible for this. The Ministry of Defense, the army. So, the court said, if the army wants to demolish it, they can. Which is finished all of the legal coverage. 3 days ago, actually on Sunday morning, we have noticed that the Israeli government itself announced that they are going to delay the demolition of the school, which is good, excellent. For us as Palestinians, we think the most important issue that happened here, it is the international pressure on the state of Israel. Because there's this kind of international pressure. Not only the Italian, the British, everybody, all of like the representatives, they came and they were supporting this village. We are talking about only 40 families, and it is a case that if the village is demolished, it will be evicted, Israel will do nothing. It's not a case that they will demolish and they will build something. No, they do not want Palestinians in E1 area. So that the case is like this. We as Palestinians, we think that the international pressure on Israel is important. We have seen this here in Al-Khan Al-Ahmar and also in E1 itself. E1, this is the red area, surrounded with the yellow. This is E1. It is supposed the eastern area for Jerusalem, and in 1998 it was proposed by the Israeli government because they want to expand and they want to annex Ma'ali Adumim to Jerusalem. And because of the international pressure on Israel, they stopped it. And it was stopped because each of the Americans, presidents, were putting pressure on Israel not to build. The only building that they have built, it is the police station here, and they consider, the Israelis say to the Americans, no, it is not it is a military base, so that it is according to the international law, because it's an occupied territory, we are going to have this kind of the needs of military, so that they put the police station which is located here, and only. But the E1, they have like, we have noticed that there are like almost 35 to 40 factories. There will be like 3 to 6 tourist resorts in this area, and also within another 3 potential settlements that they will be built here. So that this is an important a settlement area for Israel. And for us, it's dangerous because it will block the north from the east side. So that as there is a pressure, a diplomatic pressure on the Israeli, they will be slowing. As the last, or actually the current American administration, they give Israel the green light, especially when they moved the embassy to the city of Jerusalem. And right now we are Palestinian, really, we are facing the Israel and facing the Americans both together against us. Hoping that this clarifies something about Al-Khan Al-Ahmar. Also, if you have other questions concerning Al-Khan Al-Ahmar or any other Palestinian, I will be glad to answer.
Anybody else? Yes, please.
How many houses and structures, businesses were Palestinians were demolished since 40 acres? Maybe there is no documentation of that, but since 68. And what happens to these people? I mean, when they were
Statistically, to tell you the truth, I will not be able to have or to provide you a real figures about it. But because we as an organization, all of the figures that we have presented is our own documentation. But I will answer the second part. If a family who's having a house has been demolished, their house has been demolished, so the family, what they shall do? I would like to clarify one thing that because of the short of the time within the presentation, I didn't mention it. We had, as an airport, as an organization, we had what's called court monitoring for almost 4 months. We assigned a lawyer to go on a daily basis to the courts in order to check what is the situation of the people, especially the Palestinian people, Akid for sure, whom are suffering and facing the Israeli laws. And one of the important issues within the survey that we have done with those people, it shows us that almost 70% of the people whom are going to the courts, whom receive demolition orders within those 4 months, more than 70% are not having independent houses. Most of the illegal housing units, it's an annexation to a previous housing unit that they had. So that usually the demolition will be on the annexation, so that a family who wants that one of their children want to get married or to expand, they will build over the roof or will build on the piece of land. But we have noticed that if a family received a demolition order and they were obliged either to demolish their houses by themselves or the Israeli municipality came and demolished it, unfortunately they have two solutions or two options. Whether the family will go and live in West Bank, in Aram, Kufr Aqab, Anata, Aizariye, which is villages near beside Jerusalem, and this will put them on threat to lose the residency rights, because we have noticed that if you are living outside the borders of Jerusalem for 7 years, your right to live inside Jerusalem will be revoked. They will withdraw your ID card. And also, the second option is that they will start looking to live together with the extended family. Like if the family will go back to live with their brothers or to live with their grandfathers, so that in order to be able to live in Jerusalem. If the family, and this usually we do advise our beneficiaries, if they are living outside Jerusalem for 7 years, it is a very threatening issue that they will lose all their rights inside the city of Jerusalem.
Over there.
Hello, I'm not sure if you heard me well, but you look right. I myself come from Ukraine and from the Donbass area. That's why I hear a lot of things that are common between our countries, because we're also occupied, we're also in the state of humiliation, in the state of searches and checkpoints and everything, all these good things. And
جاوبوا؟
example, you mentioned that if you want to learn in Arabic, you need to go to some faraway school. But if this school is close to you, the instruction is in Hebrew. So could you please give me some context about about the schools, about hospitals, about some education opportunities, health care opportunities for
انه شو اسمه بدك تجاوبي لا جاوب إنه على اساس انه يعني كانه في مساواه عندهم عند الاسرائيليين هيك القصد تبعها انه يعني كانه مثلا اذا هم بيعملوا شيء زياده بالموضوع موضوع المساواه هذا بجاوب اذا If I understand you well, thank you for the question. That you are looking forward at what are the Israelis are doing in reference to the Palestinians, and especially like attracting them to the Israelization, right? This is the idea behind the question. I will talk about education and healthcare. When we are talking about the healthcare, I'll be very frank, and I will not. The healthcare for Jerusalemites is opened. For me, if I'm getting sick, for Dalia, for anybody, it will be open so that we can be medicated in the Israeli hospitals. I'm not going to talk about the discrimination within the medical system itself, but if you can see that it is opened. But unfortunately, and it's important to keep in mind that many of the Palestinian hospitals in the city of Jerusalem, they are not being able to operate regularly because of the Israeli authorities putting pressure on them. How? Jerusalem is the capital of Palestine since the British Mandate. Since the 1917, it was considered the capital. And the development of the city was like this Jerusalem having all of the hospitals that is medicating the Palestinians. From Nazareth, from Nablus, from Gaza, they will come to be medicated here. We have like 4 major hospitals in the city of Jerusalem. Right now, those 4 hospitals that they are providing medical care for Palestinians are threatened to be closed. Why? Because of the huge burden on them, and especially the running cost of the hospitals that they are not supported by the Israeli government. The Israeli government is not supporting Al-Maqasid and Augusta Victoria or the St. John Hospital or the St. Joseph Hospital, the French hospital that we call it them. And for this reason, it's really a very important challenge for us as Palestinians to counter. So that, according to your question, whether we are treated within the medical, yes, we are. But if they notice that Dalia or the family is not living in Jerusalem, living here, Anata, this will automatically, after 2 years, not 7 years, 2 years, they will stop the medical insurance upon the family. And this person will not be able to be medicated in any of the hospitals inside Jerusalem. This is concerning the healthcare. Concerning education, there are different reports from Israeli organizations that there is a shortage within the classrooms inside the city of Jerusalem. And if we want to compare the crowdness of children or class students in East Jerusalem and West Jerusalem, it's almost, here we are talking about 38 students per classroom in East Jerusalem, while in West Jerusalem it's a 21 student per classroom. And when we are talking about that, the Israeli Minister of Education, that it should be not discriminative according to the Israeli laws, they should have like the same budget. But the budget for the Israeli schools in West Jerusalem is almost 185% more than the East Side per capita, per student. So that they are not investing anything within this East Side. So that education is not being implemented in East Jerusalem. And for this reason, we are talking about a higher drop rate. And actually, according to the Israeli reports, that the drop out of the schools from East Jerusalem is the highest rate in all of the cities in Israel. So for this reason, if we think that according to the law, the Israeli law, there should be like a kind of equality. But the discrimination, it is in the system itself. And you can see it, you can feel it.
I just want to add on that. I want to comment. I have studied in North Cyprus International Relations for 3.5 years. I used to come back home in order to keep my health insurance and national insurance. So I used to come every 3 months, go back to Palestine, to Jerusalem, and stay with the family for a week or so. But still, when I came back, my health insurance and my national insurance were taken away from me. So I had to prove that I have been living in Jerusalem for the past 7 years by giving bills, invoices of the electricity, invoices of telephones for the 7 years, month by month, invoices of water, and a rental agreement in the city of Jerusalem for 7 years. So you have to keep up to date every month these things. On the other hand, if an Israeli if a Jew in any place in this world wants to come to Jerusalem, to live in Jerusalem, he could come first with a scholarship in any university he wants, and with a loan for a good housing and everything. But us, if we live for this period, so I don't think that it is like there is any kind of, equality in health insurance or education or anything else.
No, just another thing that it is important, really, because she reminded me about the taxes. It's very important to know that we as Palestinians, it's not a case of like a privilege that the Israelis are giving us within the medical system or medical health care or education. No, because we are taxpayers. And we as Palestinians living in East Jerusalem, it's the same as any Israel living in the west side of Jerusalem. We pay the taxes. And we pay the health insurance, we pay from our salaries, we pay on our children. So that it's a case that it's not a privilege, we pay for it.
Anybody else? Over there?
As far as I know, there was a law approved in July of this year, like confirming that in Israel, the Jewish have some privileges because of only because of their religion. It's a recent thing. I wanted to know your opinion and your knowledge about this and how nowadays is affecting now the Palestinian lives with the approval of this law, certifying that Israel is a Jewish state.
I will give him space to speak, but I will say beginningly, it's will not only affect the Arabs or the Palestinians living in Jerusalem. It will affect the Africans living in Jerusalem. It will affect the Ethiopians, all of them. It will affect the Russians, the Christian Russians immigrating to Jerusalem. So it will affect everybody living in Jerusalem, not only the Palestinians. It will affect everybody living there, even the people who are in the system and have came with the creation of the State of Israel. It's called the Nation State Bill, and it gives the rights to Jews discriminating other ethnicity in Israel.
Yes, concerning the Jewishness of the State of Israel, it's important to keep in mind that, like, since 1948, this was one of the main characteristics of the State of Israel. What's happening now is that they are encoding all of the practices, all of the policies within a law. I will give you 2 examples. The Palestinian living in 48, Palestinian, or what they call them Arab Israeli, we call them Palestinian 1948, they have practiced the discrimination against them, discrimination in budget, discrimination in social and economic rights all over the time. And right now, they are being considered a second class. The key answer is, whether they at the beginning, before this encoding of the law, were they a first citizen? No. They were a second class citizens. Most important about the language. Within this law, they are considering the Hebrew language as the only official language in Israel. And the Arabic language, it will be second language, or it will be like a kind of informal. To tell you the truth, that the Israeli law, the Israeli legal system, the Israeli authorities were not dealing with Arabic language as a main language all over since 1948. An example, we as a legal aid organization, we had went to the Israeli Supreme Court because we have requested that a plan to confiscate 741 dinars here in this area, which is National Park nearby Isawiya and At-Tur, 741 dinars. It is only 35 papers. It's a document of 35 pages. We requested the regional committee to translate it into Arabic. Why? Because all of the affected people, 99.9% of those population are Palestinian, are Arab, and they do not read Hebrew. We have requested that according to the Israeli law and according that the language, the Arabic language is important and is a main language, we are requesting for you to translate it. The administrational court reject our request. They made us pay the court fees and another penalty of 20,000 shekels, and we went to the Supreme Court that also rejected our request. So that historically, this is not history, it's like 2012, they are not dealing with the Arabic language as a main language. So the court, the law itself is not bringing something new. It's only encoding all of the previous policies, previous practices that were done by the Israeli authority, by the Israeli government. Right. But this is reflecting how is the Israeli authorities are looking forward in order to be more and more discriminative against anything will not be related to the Israel. They are more and more dealing with the Palestinians as a discriminative. And again, back to what Ehud Barak said, that they are not, for us, they are living the apartheid, but they do admit that they are heading to a apartheid state.
I would like to ask what are the main differences, human rights, law differences between the Palestinians living in East Jerusalem, West Jerusalem, occupied Palestinian in Israel, and Gaza. If you can explain. Voting rights and
Yes. We are talking about like 5 different categories of Palestinians. The first Palestinians who are having a very privilege of the Israeli laws are the ones that are living here inside Palestine 1948. They can go to the parliament, they can elect, they can also nominate or to be candidates with the parliament, with the Knesset, and form a government or whatever. But they have all of this rights, civil rights. Then the second Palestinian category is the Jerusalemite. Me and Dalia having the blue ID card that we can go to the municipality election, but we cannot go to vote for the Knesset, which is like the members or representative inside the Israeli parliament. We have the civil rights, we have the status of residency, which is temporarily issue, we have social and economic rights. Then we have the Palestinians living in the West Bank that they hold the green ID. And those, it was a case that they have what's called the Palestinian Authority, that they will not be any related to Israel. But unfortunately, until this moment, all of those Palestinians, all of us as Palestinians, but especially the Palestinians and the PA authorities, they are still having to be monitored by the Israeli Authority. Very simple. Like, if there is a new baby or a new birth in the Palestinian Authority, each week or each month there is a kind of like transferring the data of the new birth to the Israeli system, so that they are monitoring us even within our independent Palestinian Authority. And the fifth one, it is the Palestinians whom are living in Gaza. That really it is a very miserable situation, because all of the borders are closed, and also in Egypt they will not be able to travel. Even the safe corridor that they were mentioning within the Oslo Accords, that there will be a kind of a safe corridor between Gaza and West Bank so that Palestinians will be able to travel. Right now, it is not. It's a dream for us, for Palestinians. If a Palestinian living in Gaza wants to come to West Bank, he have like to be arranged and to have like this kind of arrangements, coordination with the Israeli authorities, and they will give her a permit to come to the West Bank. And the fifth, actually, we have the Palestinians living in diaspora, in the refugees camp in Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan, Egypt. All of those Palestinians are not able, like, having any documents to be traveling or coming to Palestine.
I would like to say that concerning the 1948 lands and the Palestinians living in these lands, according to the association agreements between Israel and the EU, Israel must abide to spend 20% of its budget on the 20% Palestinians in Israel, meaning the 1948 land. But still, only 2% is distributed to Palestinian villages. So there is discrimination against Palestinians in the 1948 land, with schools and the municipality budgets and so on. This is concerning the 1948 lands. Concerning the West Bank, according to the Oslo Agreement, the West Bank is now with the Palestinian Authority, but still many settlements were built from that day to today in the West Bank. As well, the Israeli offense army would not take permission from the PA to enter the West Bank area, so they can come at night, take anybody from his house or kill anybody and leave. So the West Bank is still under the whole control of Israel. As well, many Palestinians are banned by Israelis to enter Israel. Many Palestinians are banned to travel outside of Palestine. The only place to travel through as West Bank ID holders is Jordan. So many Palestinians are banned from the Israeli government to travel because of their political activism or humanitarian activism or so on. So my father and mother was forbidden to travel from Palestine, and my brother was they put for him a sentence. So he was in Jordan. He couldn't come back to Palestine because if he would come back, he would have to go to prison. My mother had cancer, and she couldn't go say goodbye to my brother because she was forbidden travel to Jordan through the Israeli borders. So this is the case of the West Bank and Gaza. You know, the siege of Gaza is by Israel, by Egypt, and today with some sanctions of the PA that are put because the international governments are pushing the PA to stop relations with Hamas and to put sanctions on Hamas and so on. So the people who are paying the price of this are the people in Gaza. It's not Hamas party. It's the people in Gaza who are paying for this. So that's it.
Anybody else?
Yes, I would like to know
You next,
how
you next,
do
sorry.
the Palestinians within the area from Gaza, West Bank, and East Jerusalem, how can they communicate with each other? Is it easy? Can you easily do you form like one nation, or is it so difficult to communicate that there's hardly any? Can you form one policy and so on, or is that impossible?
هو بيحكي عن إشي سياسي مش عن إنه نقدر نتواصل مع بعض.
بعرفش إنه سياسي ما بنقدرش قليله ما بنقدر إنه سياسي
لا بنقدر بس يعني حسب اللي بنحكي عن مش إنه إحنا عن مشاكل بيننا.
هلا according to like the Palestinians in those areas, at the end of the day we have this kind of communication, but first we have to keep in mind that Gaza is under siege, so that we have like many families from Jerusalem and West Bank, they are not able to visit their families. Like my wife's friend, she's from Gaza living in Jerusalem. She was not able to see her family, her father, since 14 years as she left Gaza Strip. So that there is a special situation for Gaza, which is important for us that there is a siege. The other areas within the West Bank, okay, there is, and we will be able to visit. Unfortunately, many families in the West Bank, they will not be able to visit their families in Jerusalem or inside Palestine 1948 because they don't have permits. Right now, you know, there is the separation wall all over the West Bank that will really prohibit Palestinians to go and easily to the inside Palestine 48. And for this reason, there is a real challenge for us to have this kind of continuous relation, continuous communication. On the other hand, we have to keep in mind that the Palestinian categories that we have mentioned earlier, the 4 or 5 categories, it's important to keep in mind that each one of those, they have like a different status. In the West Bank, they are considered like Palestinian Authority. They will have like a different laws that they will rule me as Palestinian in Jerusalem. And me as Palestinian in Jerusalem, there are different laws that will rule me and monitor me than the Palestinian in 1948. And also different from the one in Gaza. Hoping that this make it a little bit clear.
So, the last question, please.
No, there's
Or two, يعني مش مشكلة بس.
Okay, last 2 questions. Please go ahead.
My 2 points really are both connected with the word respect. First of all, great respect for both of you, both from me and anybody else here, I would guess, for what you're doing and any risks you're taking. So that's the first thing I would like to say. Secondly, the word respect. Do you respect the United Nations?
Yeah.
We do respect international law and we do respect the United Nations as a big thing. But the thing is, there are laws that are put by the UN, but are not put on the ground. So if the UN keeps on condemning all the time, going out and condemning things and not doing anything else but condemning, then I think the whole idea of the UN is just ridiculous. It has no.
No, it is real that when we are talking about the United Nations, that all of the resolutions that they are supporting Palestinian case, they are not being applied. And when we are talking about, for instance, which is for us, it's very important to keep in mind that the United Nations is dealing differently with different actors, players within this globe, on the earth. For instance, when we are talking about like the Crimea and Ukraine with Russia, there are sanctions against Russia because they have occupied this part of Ukraine. But for us as Palestinians, we are occupied since 1948. All of the time that we are requesting to have sanctions against Israel, nothing is done. And this kind of dealing differently with the Israel and other players, this makes us, for us as Palestinians, more and more frustrated. And the new generations, the Palestinian generations that they are growing, they will be more and more less confidence within this international tools. Just to keep in mind that almost 38% of the Palestinian population within the last election that happened in 2006, right now they haven't shared within the Palestinian decision. And all of those, they are not believing within the United Nations or the international tools. And it's important to keep in mind that the Palestinian appraisal in 2015 that happened in October in Jerusalem, and it continued, let us say, till June 2016, most of the people who were they were the youth people, that they are not believing, actually they are believing less and less with the international tools.
Which is a problem.
Yes.
I just want to add here, the thing is that the US has this big force on the UN, and I don't know if you've heard, but the US has stopped the funding for the UNRWA. So a whole organization that is for the UN and working for refugees around the world, especially the Palestinians. Millions of refugees are now suffering with no jobs, with no schools, just because US wanted to stop the aid to UNRWA. And the UN member states must be the one responsible to now aiding UNRWA and helping the UNRWA to be back and fit, because it's the lives of many refugees.
Yes, please, at the back there.
I'd like to ask about your relationship with Israel and with Palestinian Authority and also with the municipality of Jerusalem, and if you ever had any problems with regards to your activities, either as your organizations or individuals.
بحكي بدك
بحكي
بدي.
صوتي بعض.
Okay. هلا as you know, on the 31st of October, actually 30th of October this month, the municipality in Israel will have elections. And one of the cities that will have election is the city of Jerusalem. We as Palestinians living in the east side of Jerusalem, the Jerusalem, we have the right, the full right according to the Israeli law, to participate. But it is important to keep in mind, since this municipality, is Israeli, is part of the occupation, Palestinians since 1967 are boycotting it, because we are totally confident that whether the mayor himself is Palestinian, because at the end of the day, within the coming 10, 15, 20 years, we will be the majority in the city of Jerusalem, it will not affect anything. So that we have the right to go to vote, but we do not practice this right because it is an occupation municipality of Jerusalem. حكيت لنا شغلة عن ايش سألات؟
هي حكت عن شو الاشياء اللي ممكن نتعرض لها كنشطاء.
هلا, the second thing which is very important, and thank you for raising it, which is the organizations working inside the city of Jerusalem. What I would like to highlight here is not only working inside the east of Jerusalem, but we as a human rights organization working in the occupied Palestinian territories, we are facing many challenges and problems. There are many smearing campaigns all over Europe against the human rights organization. We are facing really many problems with having new partners working in the occupied Palestinian territories. And all of it is as a result of the Israeli organizations that they are working against us, and they are highlighting that we should not be there. We as a legal aid organization working in Jerusalem, we are facing many problems in approving or having approves in order to continue working in the side of the city in Jerusalem.
I thought you asked about the activists and the threat on activists, Palestinian activists in Jerusalem. As any activist in Jerusalem is under threat of being arrested, firstly, sometimes banned from traveling, in some occasions threatened by the family and so on. Like for example, they came to my house and they gave me an intelligence paper appointment, that they have to go to an appointment to meet the general, the captain. And they didn't go, so they called my father and they told him, you have to take care of your daughter and you don't want her to lose her identity or lose her life just for stupid issues, and she can immigrate anywhere in the world and go live happily ever after and stuff like this. Other activities are more risky because you might get shot. In 2015, Palestinians youth actually started a protest against the policies of Israel and the collective punishment, whereas one family of a martyr was going, the whole family was going to be demolished. And a girl wearing hijab was just killed because she's wearing hijab in Hebron. So youth all around Palestine started going in protest. I was in a protest near Beit El settlement, which is a settlement built on Ramallah, the city Ramallah and Beira. We were in the protest and I was shot to the heart. A sniper shot me to the heart. A live bullet, just because I was standing there. I remember back then, Beit Salem and Amnesty took the photos because the photos show that I was just standing there, not even holding a rock, even though I think rocks are not unpeaceful. But anyway, the bullet came to the heart, passed by the heart, and then to the lungs, and ruined the lungs, and from the lungs to the spinal cord. It is now in my spinal cord. The hospital could not take the bullet out. So this is the situation of 4,000 injured during the Intifada, which lasted only for 1 year. Many of the injuries were very bad, and many of the injured, when we were you asked before about health care. When I was in the hospital, one of the guys who was injured with me, he's 19 years old, he was in the ICU as well. He was shot to the head and then taken to be arrested. So they took him to the hospital, they made the operation for him, and after the operation, they attacked him again. So he had to do another operation. And at last, they realized he's dead, so they don't need to put him in prison. So they sent him back to the Palestinian hospital. He came to the hospital where I was. I refused to get treated in Israeli hospital. I asked my family as soon as I woke up in the ambulance to keep me in Palestinian hospital because I was afraid of arrest. The guy came to the hospital and he literally remembers nothing. I visit him and every 5 minutes I have to remind him who I am. He lost conscious, he couldn't walk, he lost his legs and so on. So it's like thousands of stories of injured only in 1 year, it's 1 year of uprising, 2015, and thousands of stories.
Okay, I just wanted to finish the presentation thanking you all again for staying till the end, for all of you who could stay. Thanking ISM for the support and the organization, as well as International Amnesty. And after hearing and learning of all this information that my colleagues here have given us today, I will ask you one more time to please know the campaign, go into the web page and sign the petition. We still have 1,500 signatures to go. Please consider it, and we hope all of you join the campaign and sign the petition for the United Nations and the European Union authorities. Thank you very much.
Could you please put up the website again? Show the website.
So for all of you, there are brochures. You can take them, and there's the website. I also wanted to thank, first of all, Mundubat, which support this event took place, and very lots of thanks to Dalia, to Jack, that they came here. We met in Brussels for the first time, and it's great. I never imagined that you would be here so soon. So thanks to Mundubat, thank you to the campaign. And I would like to invite you to other events that will be happening in November. One of them is Poetry Day, which is a festival about poetry, and this year for the first time there will be 2 events on Palestine. One will be on Mahmoud Darwish, the most known Palestinian poet, and another event will be on with 3 Palestinian contemporary poets, 2 female, 1 man, Gaston Kanafani, very well-known poet, so you are most welcome. Please follow the website. Maden Poesie, and another event will be on the 28th of November. Also, it will be an activist event. There will be a great Israeli speaker and human rights supporter, David Sheen. The event will be on the 28th of November at Philosophical Faculty in the evening. Please follow the pages of ISM. ISM has czech.org. And so again, we've been recording the lecture. We'll have it up on the website, and please follow the pages. If you would like to join us, you are most welcome to become more active, because we always need more people. So if you are interested in this, and if you are in some way touched by that, please come to us. There's mailing list outside of the door, so you can sign it. And also there's, don't forget to sign the campaign, the petition, and basically I look forward to meeting you again in November, the Poetry Day, and David Sheen. Thank you so much.